back, everybody, to another episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast, a preview episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm your host, Jordan Hill. Got GenesPage's David Murray on with us on this Friday morning to talk about the Battle of the Bulldogs. Number 5, Georgia, going to Mississippi State, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. local kick. The game will be televised on ESPN. I want to say thanks to David for popping on. We're going to learn a little bit about Mississippi State, a rejuvenated Bulldogs team in Jeff Lebby's second year, getting ready to try to pull a big home upset on Saturday morning. So first off, David, I appreciate you taking the time. How are things out Starkville way?
Well, you summed it up really well there, Jordan, when you said it would be a big upset. It'd be a pretty huge upset in this regard. Certainly, if you look at the comparative rankings, Georgia number 5 in the initial round of college football playoff, which I think that's fair, judging by the head-to-head with Alabama and the fact that A&M is undefeated. In fact, I'm working on my SEC power ratings today. Probably going to leave Georgia third at this point. Didn't get to see a lot of the cocktail party. Yes, I'm one of the old coots around here who still calls it by the real name. I'm not very politically correct on those things. But it reminded me that, and Jeff Lebby talked about it some this week as well in his SEC teleconference, that Georgia does tend to play things a little close to the edge. But the track record under Kirby Smart in fourth quarters, you just can't argue with it. They get it done somehow, some way. And I'm going to really hark back to my old age. I've been asked a lot this week around Starkville and campus about what I think will happen. I say that I'm old enough, yes, to have seen the Bear Bryant teams in person. And this team kind of reminds me of that in the sense that you play with them, you think you're competitive. It's within a touchdown, maybe 10 points. You get into the fourth quarter and feel like you've got a shot. And then they just say, okay, time to take care of business. Let's shut them down on defense, maybe score another field goal or something here and put it away. They just seem comfortable playing that way. And there's a lot to be said for that because, A, you've got the talent to do it. B, you've got the coaching. And C, you've got the experience. So I expect Georgia to come in and play that type of game here. I don't know. You can speak to this way better than I can. I don't know what they're thinking about the SEC is at this point because obviously they need Alabama to take a couple of losses and need A&M to lose. And like I said, I'm going through the power ratings and I just looked at my handy-dandy little SEC schedule and went, wow, Texas A&M, they are set up for a smooth ride all the way to the finish, so I don't see them losing unless they Aggie something up. And Alabama, now that LSU is not a particularly big deal, Oklahoma's their last challenge between. So correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't Georgia's thinking right now be more along the lines of, okay, how can we best position ourselves in the playoffs to get a home game?
I think that's a fair case, but it's funny to bring up, David. Last year, I swear about this time of year, we were kind of thinking the same thing, and then Alabama loses at Oklahoma, Ole Miss loses at Florida, and it went from, man, it probably doesn't look like Georgia will make the SEC title game, to they were the first team to clinch a spot. It wound up, coming down to Texas A&M. So, like, there is value in it, but also, like, it's kind of a redo of last season, and I look at Texas A&M at Missouri. The fact that Missouri's quarterback is hurt probably hurts Missouri's chances. But even A&M playing Texas at the end of the regular season, it's like, yeah, I mean, more than likely Georgia's probably not playing the SEC title game. But we saw some weird things happen last year, and you can never say never.
Yeah, and it's a whole different debate. I'm sure you're going to have this as you get closer to the end of the season. It doesn't affect us, obviously, but what is the value now of the conference championship games in the picture? If you're not playing for a top seed, which may be in play there, how much do you put into a conference title game and risk your chances of losing a home game or getting people hurt, that kind of thing? I hate it because I'm one of those who never wants to see the SEC championship game or all conference games go away any more than I want to see the SEC baseball tournament go away. But the reality is that with all our attention now focused on the postseason, there are more younger fans out there who think, what's the value in it compared to us elders who, although we thought that was a great deal, a goal in and of itself. So that's a topic for another day. But looking again to the specific matchup, the Bulldogs, Mississippi State Bulldogs version, I'm going to say, they're They're coming off the big win at Arkansas, and yes, I know in most quarters you say big win at Arkansas this year. Not that big a deal because Arkansas is truly bad. But Mississippi State won one in the fourth quarter, and after their agonizing losses to Tennessee, to Florida, and to Texas, especially Texas, where you're up by 17 points in the fourth quarter and don't pull it off. That was a big deal for Jeff Lebby's team. He kept the confidence that they could pull it off, and then the team did it themselves, despite some twists and turns in there. Now, how do they carry that into this week? Well, this is a entirely different deal, obviously. But the big story around here in Starkville is simply the fact that Mississippi State has a shot at bowling. And if there are more than a few state fans already looking towards next week, and you mentioned Missouri with their quarterback issues, oh, yeah, we're really aware of what's going on there now as well. I think down to the third string quarterback at this point, that if Mississippi State, no matter what happens tomorrow, their plan is to take care of business in Missouri if they can, get bowl eligible. And to me, that makes Jeff Lebby coach of the year in the SEC with where the program was that he inherited, where it's been for a couple of seasons now. So Georgia's a big deal, and I see some opportunities tomorrow. But in the big picture, they deserve that 8.5 line. Last thing you know, our sponsor with the network, FanDuel, having something like that. I think over under about 57.5, which means they're expecting a kind of a slugfest in that regard, which I think is fair. I really think that's what tomorrow is going to turn into, and any sort of really super physical game is always going to favor Georgia, to my mind.
Yeah, I want to ask you big picture with Mississippi State. You mentioned, that they need another win for bowl eligibility, but I can't help but think back to when we did this episode last year, David. A lot of it was talking about like laying the groundwork and trying to make the progress to get ready for the future. I mean, I think it's obvious that they've taken steps forward in Jeff Lebby's second season. What's impressed you the most about Jeff Lebby's second team and the progress they've made as a program in his second year?
Simply the fact that they stuck together. And that's once upon a time, you wouldn't call that particularly big deal. In the portal era, when you're reassembling a team just about every year, chemistry is a really, really fragile subject in college football today. Well, probably so in most every sport now. It's always been that way in basketball, but now so in football. And the fact that 80% of this team is his. They're either first or second year players, either transfer portal, true freshmen from last year, red shirts, that sort of thing. So truly, this is Jeff Lebby's team. And so the fact that they have hung through those tough losses, and let's be blunt, a couple of them are self-inflicted. There's your if you don't give away 2 defensive touchdowns to Tennessee on a fumble after a sack or a pick six in the first game, you beat Tennessee. So that's self-induced. Florida, you make a unwise decision to run one more play instead of trying to go for the winning field goal. And then, of course, the Texas game, you give up a punt return touchdown to a guy who's already shown he can bring it back all the way. You just outkick your coverage, and that happens. These defeats, in a large extent, not taking anything away from winning teams, were self-inflicted. The fact that they hung together and were able to take care of Arkansas, as bad as Arkansas is, that to me is the big reflection that this team believes in the coach. They believe in themselves. I'll give you another example, too. When Lebby had to go to Camario Taylor there in late second quarter, scores a couple of touchdowns, then has one bad series, and he pulls him out and replaces him with Blake Shapen. You can imagine what our fan board was like at that moment. Even the kindest things said about the coaching decision to bring back Shapen at that point, especially after his first pass he throws is off the hands of his own receiver and intercepted. Let's say they were ready to become the 5th SEC team to make a change. The fan base was. The Bulldogs weren't. They came back out there and did what it took to win the game, which shows me that Lebby and his staff have got something going emotionally and mentally with his team that you can't quantify, and you can't even count on it year to year because, like I said, with the transitions you have through the portal and graduations and all sorts of things, that to me is the most impressive thing that Lebby's done. He kept them playing together. They've got to win. Now they have a shot at bowl eligibility. they're going to come into tomorrow's game with as much confidence as practical for something like this compared to last year when you know you're down to a true freshman quarterback. You know your defense is struggling against Georgia team, and you put up a surprisingly good fight in a lot of areas. But the attitude is so utterly different this year, and that's sometimes you want to credit the team, obviously, because they have to do it themselves. But Jeff Lebby's instilled this. So that to me is the biggest thing he's done here in year two. Plus the fact he's learning how to be a head coach. And he's even admitted that. There's some times he still made decisions more as an offensive coordinator than as a head coach, but that's natural at this stage now. And by the way, he is far from the only one in the SEC. We've seen that. There's been a rash of coaches out there making some coordinator type decisions instead of head coaching decisions at crunch time. But as he showed at Arkansas, he made the head coaching type decisions and is paying off. So this is a man who's growing into the role and has a future in this business.
Yeah, I think sometimes fans take for granted, just like with any job, that the more you do it, you kind of learn what you need to do and how to do the job better. And I think you're seeing that with Jeff Lebby. I want to ask you about quarterback Blake Shapen. Getting hurt early in last season, kind of threw really the entire season for a loop, losing him in late September. What has stood out to you about him to this point? And do you think we'll see some Camario Taylor on Saturday? What's sort of your expectation with how they will handle quarterback?
Well, as far as Blake, physically, he is so different than last year. Of course, you didn't get to see him because he was injured in the Florida game week 4 of the season. But over the winter and spring, he really bulked up his shoulders, his chest, his muscles like that. And so now, last year, the problem he would have in the passing game was underthrowing. This year, it's totally opposite. He's overthrowing his receivers to some extent. Now, part of that's because the receivers, Brennan Thompson and Anthony Evans, have such speed. You're willing to let it rip down there. And they have been, we go back to the Florida game in particular, but some others where they were just inches off a huge connection there because the ball was laid out a little bit long. That's a better problem to have than he had last year, obviously. So that's been his physical growth. He's shown his toughness because when he bounced back from the interception last week and just the team rallied behind him, and that shows how much trust they have in him as well. So Shapen, he's still his problem is simply the standard problem with most quarterbacks in college football, blocking. He just doesn't have the protection in most situations that he really needs to fully exploit his physical abilities and the abilities of those wide receivers, because this is more, and Jeff Lebby will admit this, the offense is a little bit too big little. It's either the big strike downfield or they're 3 and out running a bunch of short plays kind of thing. They don't really have that balance in the act right now, and a lot of that reflects the offensive line. Now, when they held up the blocking against Arkansas, all of a sudden those passes are available. Georgia, much like Texas and Tennessee, more so Texas, is just going to try to brutalize you at the line of scrimmage and come after, and that's going to be the big challenge. And by the way, it looks like State's right tackle, Albert Reese, is out again for another week here. He has a shoulder separation, which will only get better with time by not playing. So it looks like they're going to hold him out in that regard. So I know Georgia's scouting that certainly, how to attack a couple of younger tackles, those positions. But Shapen's maturity shows when it matters there. And as far as Camario Taylor, yeah, he'll play. His red shirt's already burned. He's played 7 games this season. He showed in the Florida game, this game, that he found out that it's not always automatic. Like snap the ball to him and he's going to run for 5 yards. That, oh, you mean I've got to time things and use my blocking and pick and choose my spots a little bit instead of just take off and go. But he's a quick learner. And I told Lebby back in spring, I've been doing this a while, as you know, just from what the little I saw of Taylor the first couple of times in practices after a press conference pulled aside and said, Coach, this guy is special. I've seen a lot of freshman quarterbacks come through here. He is probably physically more advanced than any of them ever. And that includes guys like Don Smith. That includes Dak Prescott. That includes Tyler Russell, all sorts of great players who've come through here. And Lebby just noticed that he's unique. His skill set is absolutely unique. Now, he's still learning how to take a couple of miles per hour off that fastball, but that's natural for young quarterbacks who just rear back and let it rip in high school. He's teachable. He self-analyzes. He knows what he does wrong. He knows how to correct those things. this guy's the future, and State is going to have to pump a whole lot of NIL money in. He's a local kid, and there's every reason to stay, but his value is such that this is the guy you got to target for retention next year because he is the real deal.
Georgia tried really hard to flip him in recruiting, so they I'm sure as far as scouting getting ready for this game, they know that if he gets in, they have got to be ready. I want to ask you about another guy with Georgia ties, and that's Anthony Evans, a guy who
Mhm.
started his career at Georgia, who has been huge for Mississippi State this year.
Right.
We've heard about him quite a bit on the Junkyard. A lot of folks saying, why do we let this guy go? What has stood out to you, one, about how he's joined this team and become such a big factor, but two, just his playmaking ability and what has allowed him to stand out and help Mississippi State like he has.
Well, a couple things about him. You watch Brennan Thompson, his counterpart, play, and you see, okay, that's sheer speed. Evans is right there with him. It's not as blatant a speed, you might want to call it there, but it's there. But he, when he catches the ball, he turns into a running back. He's physical. He has good footwork. He gets balanced really quickly after the catch. He knows what to do with the ball. He has transformed this offense. Yes, Thompson's the exciting one because he's a deep strike guy, but Evans gets down there himself. You see the Florida game. You saw, well, last week against Arkansas. And the thing he did great there was he overran the throw. Taylor actually left it a little high and short. He came back and adjusted to it, reached back, got the ball, and still kept his balance with the defender on him and another one coming over and got into the end zone for the touchdown. And of course, his big play later, the one that clinched the game at the end, he's trying to get the first down and he spins an Arkansas defender on the sideline, keeps his balance, and stays inside the white lines. All of a sudden, he's just got to beat one guy for the touchdown, and State wins the game. So Evans has been a transformative force. There's a reason why he's leading the team in receptions, and he's just a playmaker out there. He's smart, he's tough, and you can he'll have his share of balls that maybe don't quite connect, but at any moment, all of a sudden, the threat is there that he's going to take something and do something big with it. I take the Arizona State game for an example like that. Southern Miss, other games like that. This is a guy who medium range. You let him catch a slant out there one on one with half a step on the receiver, and a big play is going to happen. So, yeah, he's one that got away from y'all that Mississippi State is very welcome to have this year because he and Thompson have transformed the passing game entirely.
So Thompson and Evans obviously will play a big part. Who are some of the other playmakers on offense that Georgia fans should just be aware of going into Saturday?
The wild card is always Seydou Traore, the tight end. Volatile guy, sometimes a little over emotional when he's playing out there. He hasn't thrown a football in the stands this year like he did last season. Didn't realize, oh no, in college football, you can't do that. Hey, for a guy born and raised in England, he's still sometimes learning some of the things there. But he is such a wild card in the passing game where he can go 2 quarters and never even see the ball. Then all of a sudden it comes his way, and he just does something incredibly athletic in air to pull it down, make a catch, move the chains, even get a touchdown at the pylon kind of things. Blocking is not his forte. That's where you'll see guys like Cam Ball or Sam West getting more action there. And State is getting other tight ends involved as well. The surprise touchdown against Texas when they go to West. I mean, nobody on their bingo card had a pass to him scoring the first points of that game that day too. So Seydou Traore is to watch for. Fluff Bothwell, he came back for the Arkansas game. He's clearly not 100%. Rolled that ankle badly at Texas. In fact, we thought the ankle was broken, by the way, but no, he's a tough kid, bounced back. He's closer to 100% this game. He's going to be the mauler in there he's got just enough speed that if he does get a crack, he can do something, but he's not a true breakaway threat. Devon Booth is the guy who has a better chance of breaking something big. At this point in the season, Lebby and his staff have just basically settled on a 2 running back alternation there between Booth and Bothwell, depending on situations. Then you throw in Camario Taylor in the mix. You've got the extra running element. If I have one gripe with this coaching staff and frankly with the previous coaching staff, I don't know what's gotten into coaches that they just addicted to the jet sweep. It doesn't really work well here, particularly against defenses that have speed and discipline and can play one-on-one. But I guarantee you're going to see some jet sweeps to Anthony Evans and Brennan Thompson tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I can't help but think the college football video game came out, and that became a very popular play there. But I don't know if coaches are watching their sons play it, decide they're going to do it, because Georgia's done it too. They love running those jet sweeps, and kind of with you, David. Sometimes it's a little bit overkill. It's not the most productive play you could run.
And as an old coot, I think it should count as a rushing play and not a passing play. But hey, what do I know?
No, I'm right there with you. Now, I want to switch over to defense. Kirby Smart, very complimentary of this Mississippi State defense, likes what he's seen, pointed out they are very good at turning teams over. What has stood out to you about how they've played on defense? Because this was a huge liability on
Right.
Jeff Lebby's first team. And who are three, four names that stand out on this defense?
Well, the main thing that's happened with the defense is they got bodies. They went to the transfer portal, picked up plenty of extra bodies at several positions, but mainly they got healthy. Last year, they were down to basically three true defensive linemen by the middle of the season, and that's just a recipe for disaster in the SEC. The secondary last season was getting completions close to 80% in SEC play, but most of that was because there was no pass pressure at all. State had 10 sacks all of last year. Now, they're not piling up the sacks again this year, but the pressure is there more often than not. So with guys like Kedrick Bingley Jones now full speed, you're seeing a mix of Calvin Dinkins, Jeray Bledsoe, and others. And now you've got a decent rotation, so those guys are not quite as worn out by the fourth quarter as they had been in a couple of previous games as well. Linebacking play is vastly improved this year. They're faster, they're more athletic, and they're taking advantage of what they have working for them up front. Guys like Nick Mitchell, who is really rounded into just a very excellent SEC linebacker here at the end of his career. He won't make any all conference teams, but he's the guy that really holds things together in the middle. Zachary Tillman, when he's on, he is really on. Of course, you have the transfer from Texas, Darion Gillette. And the fact that Isaac Smith is playing a hybrid safety linebacker position. Now, he's not 100% healthy, hasn't been for weeks with a right ankle, and yet he still has that knack for making plays. So he's a guy that's really got to focus on Georgia's ground game tomorrow. So that's going to leave a lot more one-on-ones in the secondary, and that's where the great improvement has been. Guys like Brylan Lanier, who should be healthy this weekend. Jerron Manning just last night went off the SEC's availability report, so he should be available. Uh, Lanier you saw him last year at cornerback, not his position, but that was out of necessity. Now he's where he belongs at safety, and you see the difference there. In the cornerback position, Kelly Jones ranking first or second in the SEC in efficiency at the cornerback position, playing himself into a draft pick as well. A tall corner who's tough to throw on, and now he's learned that he likes to hit a little bit as well. So the secondary is vast. Just the whole defense has proven better, and the fact the offense has given them some points to work with hasn't hurt either. So all the criticism Coleman Hutzler took last year, we knew even at the time it was a lot more about personnel than play calling. Now you're seeing what they can do because they've got the personnel to accomplish more. Are they still vulnerable? Yes. They still have the stretches where a team that's got some genuine speed can do some damage to them. And they need to get off the field as well. Even with the depth, you saw the Texas A&M game, you saw the Texas game. They just get worn out by fourth quarters when the offense isn't scoring there. But if the offense can keep up their pace and let the defense stay just any kind of remotely fresh, they'll give you a game well into the fourth quarter.
I want to take a quick break, come back and talk specifically about this matchup, just what Jeff Lebby and the Mississippi State players have been saying, getting ready for this game, latest injury updates, and then what we expect to see in Starkville on Saturday. If you're watching this live, hey, throw in your score predictions. We'll rattle those off before we get out of here, but we'll take a quick break. Be right back. David, looking to this week, what has stood out to you about what Jeff Lebby has said about playing Georgia, what the players have been saying, getting ready for a huge home game there in Starkville?
Well, we touched on it earlier today. His comments on Wednesday's SEC teleconference mirrored what he said on Monday as well, that Georgia is a team just makes a habit of winning games in the fourth quarters, which means they're going to stay in contention the other three quarters. You're not going to blow them out, and they're probably not going to blow you out for the first few quarters anyway. Now, they could, obviously, because they've got the personnel and the talent to do it. It's just not the style they've played this year, more like just grind you down, which is a great formula in today's college game if you can pull it off. Because so many teams try to go for the quick strike, and Georgia, they just have this inbuilt patience and confidence that they're going to get it done at the end, and typically they do. As far as Mississippi State's chances, it's going to be the proverbial puncher's chance. You're going to have to throw some home runs. Some of those passes that State has not collected on in the early quarters against SEC opponents, they've got to hit them this week. And if they get in position to score, they've got to score. I know that sounds blatantly obvious, but the A&M game is a great example where second series of the game, they just drive the ball 75 yards, third and goal on the 1 yard line up, get things set, and an offensive tackle jumps. That has been one of the setbacks for this team because the line is so concerned about getting in position that they had the pre-snap penalties are down from last year, but they're still more than you're comfortable with. And against a Georgia defensive line that can really assert its will at almost any time, any place, I think the pressure is going to be on them, particularly again if Albert Reese is unable to go this game because he's, even though he plays out of the tackle position, he's the emotional glue of this offensive line. So if he's not in the game, then you're counting on some other guys to say, hold your water, just, run the play as it's played. You don't have to get a head start. Just do what you do. But State's going to have to hit some home runs, some of those big pass plays, and going to need some luck in the running game as well. I think they have to mix Taylor in for a few situations, particularly in end goal or end short situations like that. They don't need to be running shape, and they've done it this season, but he doesn't need to take any more damage than necessary in that regard. I know I'm sounding super conservative there, and that's why I'm not a coach anymore. In today's game, I would be so hopelessly out of style in that regard. And defensively, just play the game. Georgia's going to do what they do. You're not going to take them out of their game plan. You just play your own defensive plan. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you tip the hat and move on. But I expect a good physical game tomorrow. I don't know. Conventional wisdom around the SEC has always been that 11 o'clock kicks should be good for the home team. But I've noticed over the years that visiting teams kind of like them too. You get to the hotel Friday night, then you're up and gone, packed and ready to get back home. That I don't think the 11 o'clock is going to be a big factor for Georgia tomorrow. It may help the Bulldogs in the sense that they're ready to go out there and get playing. And I'll say this for Jeff Lebby too. He got his first SEC win. Blake Shapen got his first SEC win at last. They've done a pretty good job, despite all of us media always want to talk about how big it was to snap the losing streak. They turned their attention to this game pretty early. And to me, that's another sign of a young head coach who's learning the ins and outs of being a head coach. He's not letting them savor that so much to the point that it distracts from preparation. And they're certainly not writing this off and looking ahead to Missouri, as obviously I am, that I can afford to do that. But I like how he's handled the team. I like how the team has talked during the week. Now, come tomorrow when they tip it off, we'll find out how much that holds true because, again, all the planning in the world is like I've told people, if they understood how little impact coaches have on game day in any sport, they'd wonder why they're making the big money. Football coaches make their money Sunday through Friday. Once it's on the field there, and he made that comment too, that the players did what it took to win games. Coaches make the calls, but the players have to do it. So I think Jeff Lebby and staff are getting a knack for preparing these players. So we'll find out tomorrow because then it becomes a player's game. And I'm actually expecting a good, solid contest on Scott Field tomorrow.
No, I think it's going to be a competitive one, and sort of the point you were just making. Everybody's got to play until they get punched in the mouth. That's just sort of the game, especially in SEC these days. You mentioned the injury on the offensive line, David. What are some of the other injury situations for Mississippi State that we should just be aware of going into Saturday?
Yeah, keep an eye on Fluff Bothwell, how he moves the first times he gets on the field there on that ankle. Um, the type of running he does, you won't you will only be able to tell if he gets in the open field because being an ankle injury like that, he's a power player anyway. So the first 2 or 3 steps aren't going to matter. Um, I don't think that's nearly. I'm more concerned about Jerron Manning because he took a tough injury there in the second quarter at Arkansas. Now he's completely off the availability list, but he's the team's leading tackler. So you can't afford to have both him and Isaac Smith at less than 100% at their pivotal safety positions, basically backup linebacker positions, because they're so vital to how this. And Rylan Lanier got shook up in the Arkansas game as well. Now he came back in and he's cleared entirely this week as well. But I want to see how healthy State is in those secondary positions too, because that's the way Georgia plays the game. They're going to have to be making those split second decisions on run support or hold your ground and be there as the last line of defense if the front line doesn't control the run game. Pick your spots in the passing game, keep discipline on your eyes. And if they're not 100% healthy, that tends to affect the eyes because you start wanting to get a head start situation. So those are the guys I'd be most concerned about at this point. Reese is probably definitely out, but I'd be more concerned about what percentage of health Smith and Manning are in the secondary.
Yeah, it's hard to have anybody at 100% this time of year. I mean, going into November and the amount of wear and tear that it takes to play in this conference. All right, David, how do you see this thing playing out? I'm not going to ask you to give a score prediction, but what do you expect to see when we get a little battle of the Bulldogs on Saturday?
Well, if I take off my partisan hat, which I'm not going to do because the microphone's attached to it, um, if I'm an outsider looking in, I think I pretty well script there. I just expect Georgia to pound, pick their spots in the passing game, and just play a disciplined game and make State stop them. Just make them try. If they can assert their will like that and just keep grinding, 8, 9, 10 play series, they'll win the game fairly routinely because State's defense will just wear down eventually. Whereas State offensively is going to have to hit some home runs, as I mentioned there. It's not the ideal formula, but that's the position State's offensive line is in this year. That they're actually better at run blocking in some aspects, but that's when Reese is in. Without Reese, then the run blocking kind of comes a little more normal there. Pass protection, Georgia. I mean, there's no reason for them not just tee off and send 4 every play and let things fall as they do. Because for all his strength, it's tough for Shapen to make anything happen when he's falling backwards in a pocket that's vanishing there. So I'm going to be watching to see, does State do anything to help him out? Do they leave Booth in to chip a little bit longer? Do they devote more tight ends to the pass protection, that kind of thing? But honestly, the way Jeff Lebby has done things, he's going to play his game. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's the sign of a young coach who's getting confident in his system and just showing the world, this is how I'm going to play the game. It may not work out the best in some of these matchups here, but you can see what we're building here. And tomorrow, by the way, is a huge recruiting weekend as well. So bringing tons of prospects there because we're not that far away from signing days as well. So I think they'll be put on the best impression there possible. Good crowd expected. I know Georgia's going to bring a lot of fans as well. So hope y'all enjoy the trip. If you want to, just check out GenesPage for restaurant recommendations. But also, I'll warn you that it's going to be crowded in Starkville tonight because we're having our alumni baseball game. Um, they've narrowed it down to lettermen from the 2000s on. So, but the head coaches of the respective teams you may have heard of, guys named Rafael Palmero and Will Clark. And there'll be a certain short guy wandering around. You'll be able to smell the cigar smoke, taking great pride in everything. In fact, I ran into Ron Polk at the basketball game the other night. He said, "Do you know there are 18 people organizing this alumni game here? Back when we started, I did it all by myself." Of course, y'all have experience with Ron at Georgia as well over there. God bless Ron Polk. In fact, right now he's just across the lake from my house here at Browning Creek there. Uh, what would the SEC be without Ron Polk? I hope we never have to find out.
Absolutely, Ron Polk, a living legend, truly in SEC baseball, and a good follow on social media. He's always got something that he wants to share there. Did want to go through our score predictions over on Dogs 24/7. I got Georgia 31-20. I did want to mention what David pointed out This is a big test for Georgia's defensive line. They have really struggled to rush the passer this year, really struggling to account for and accumulate sacks. So that will be something to watch. But I got Georgia 31-20. I think this is going to be another case where I think I've got the game tied 17-17 at half. I think that Georgia's going to ultimately, that third quarter, I think they're going to try to really lean on Mississippi State. Georgia take advantage, run the football, get Chauncey Bowens and Nate Frazier going. And I think it's honestly a little closer than that final score. I think Mississippi State's going to give Georgia all it can handle, but I have Georgia 31-20. Going through our other scores from our staff, Ben Wolk has Georgia 31-23. Kip Adams has Georgia 30-20. Olivia Sayer has Georgia 34-17. Looking at some of the folks who are watching this live, Jeff Horton over on Facebook thinks it's going to be a high-scoring game. Georgia wins 38-31. Charles Armentrout has Georgia 37-24. Says looking for an absolute monster day from the running backs. I think that if Georgia's going to win this game, it is going to take a big afternoon from the running backs trying to wear on that Mississippi State defense. Well, David, I really appreciate you taking the time. I did want to give you the opportunity. Let us know what's going on over on GenesPage. We talked about before we started podcasting. You got a pretty busy day ahead and a lot of overlap right now with what's going on in Starkville.
Yeah, we just got basketball season tipped off. Had a close 3 quarters or so with North Alabama. Chris Jans is assembling a team that basically it's Josh Hubbard and a bunch of new guys. Now, that's not a bad starting point with Josh Hubbard, obviously, but that's going to be a team that really takes shape because he has worked the portal hard. But a couple of freshmen, I think, will matter this year. Women's basketball, as a matter of fact, I'm getting cleaned up and heading out to catch the last end of that to shoot video for Jacob Bain, who I know you talked to this week. To scout Mississippi State as well. And like I mentioned, the baseball alumni game, we get a chance to talk to Will and Ralph about 5:30 today around batting cage. And for a guy like me who, if you've seen the SEC shorts on Thunder and Lightning, those two, when they interviewed me as well about those guys. Yeah, and I can claim a little bit of fame that when I was a sports information director at State, this freshman baseball player was so bored he came in and kept assist on my stat crew, name of Will Clark. So we go back a ways in that regard. So looking forward to seeing a bunch of old friends tonight. But then tomorrow it's all business. SEC Nation's in town. Good crowds in town. So, and I will say this: Georgia traffic, bar none, is unique in the SEC. But Starkville can be a challenge to move around as well. It may not seem it, and fans coming in from the east, you're going to come directly to campus. But do your scouting because so many of those streets you see are going to be closed. Scout things out well, get there early, find your parking place, and just cruise the tailgates because you'll find somebody to invite you. We're pretty friendly folk over here, and all this dog's got to stick together somehow.
Absolutely, and you hit on the biggest thing for me, David. Get there early. I'd rather be in my parking spot than trying to beat it with the kickoff just right
Oh,
around
I'll
the
be in the
corner.
press box by 8 o'clock. I've learned my lesson many years ago. Get there early, and raid the security booth where they have the chocolate candy hidden. Amazing some of the things you can get away with sometimes when you've been around here for a while like that. But expecting a good scene. The weather looks good tomorrow as well. The cold weather is not arriving till Sunday, so come on, enjoy the day in Starkville.
Well, we're excited to get over there and to watch this one. Well, we'll end the episode right there. Thanks everyone who watched this live, everyone who is watching or listening to it after the fact. Go to Dogs 24/7. Go to GenesPage. A lot of great content as we get ready for the start of another big game in Week 11. Georgia, go check out. If you're a Georgia fan, go check out our YouTube at Dogs 24/7. Our TikTok, you can go follow the podcast, subscribe to the Junkyard Dawgcast wherever you get your podcast. Please rate and review. That helps us a ton. So we'll end the episode right there. For David Murray, I'm Jordan Hill. Until next time, take care, everybody.